The Hong Kong government is cracking down on fake news that undermines China's national security. What could go wrong? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. The Chinese Communist Party implemented the Hong Kong National Security Law nearly a year ago, at the end of June 2020. It brought a swift end to Hong Kong's protest movement. It gave Hong Kong's pro-Beijing authorities more tools to crack down on threats to China's national security, like protesters voicing their opinions. And boy, have authorities upheld national security. But a major threat to national security remains: freedom of the press. It's guaranteed in the Basic Law, Hong Kong's mini-constitution. Fortunately, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam is trying to stop this free press menace. Her new campaign is a crackdown on fake news, of which the government is the biggest victim. I'll give you an example of fake news by Hong Kong's so-called media. We did a previous episode on Hong Kong's National Security Education Day last month, and we showed you photos where school children were given guns and learned about how their nation's heroic police use active measures to handle dissent. Well, this article in pro-democracy paper Apple Daily compared this photo of children holding toy weapons to this photo from 2019 of Hong Kong police officers facing down unarmed citizens in the subway. According to Hong Kong's police, this was fake news. Now you might be wondering, how can simply showing two real, undoctored photos be fake news? Well, Hong Kong Police Chief Chris Tong explains. He says the problem is the newspaper's motive for showing the two photos. Is it trying to incite hatred? Is it trying to split society? Is it trying to create a contradiction between different sectors of the society? I think this is the evil part. He also said it's normal for kids to get a gun, toy guns, and run around. Makes sense. When I was a kid, I ran around the house with my Super Soaker. And Hong Kong children today intimidate each other with toy AR-15s. It's normal. At any rate, Police Chief Chris Tong singled out the pro-democracy news outlet Apple Daily and accused it of inciting hatred. You know Apple Daily is a rotten apple because its founder, Jimmy Lai, was recently sentenced to 14 months in prison for his involvement in pro-democracy protests. Besides Apple Daily, other media companies also need to be reformed by the benevolent Hong Kong government to prevent them from spreading fake news that harms China's national security. Radio Television Hong Kong is the sole public broadcasting network in the city, and it's now in the process of being reformed. See, in the past, RTHK made the mistake of reporting on government mismanagement. For example, RTHK journalist Bao Choi produced a documentary about a violent clash in 2019. It involved a group of armed, white-shirted men attacking unarmed democracy protesters in a subway station. And it shows how the police were conveniently absent. Fortunately, Hong Kong police have helped Bao Choi see the error of her ways. They arrested her in November for the dangerous crime of searching a publicly available database of vehicle registrations. This month, Choi's investigation got the Documentary Award from Hong Kong's Human Rights Press Awards. Wisely, Radio Television Hong Kong has indicated that it will not accept the award. See, the Hong Kong government is now making big changes to how RTHK runs their publicly funded TV network. It's a top-down approach that began with replacing the head of the outlet with Patrick Lee. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region government appointed Patrick Lee a professional civil servant with no media experience as the new broadcasting director of Radio Television Hong Kong. Since then, Hong Kong media have reported that several programs deemed biased by the new management of Radio Television Hong Kong were suspended. For example, RTHK used to run a satirical news show called Headliner. That was suspended last year after the Hong Kong government accused it of insulting the police.
落咗更，冇晒頭盔、眼罩、防毒面具、護甲、伸縮警棍、胡椒噴霧、點38、曲尺、雷明燈、AR-15、水炮車保護，咁出街食飯。
What Hong Kong really needs is a satirical show that doesn't make fun of anyone. At least not the people in power. They can make fun of the victims, though. Not only are harmful shows being suspended and taken off broadcast, but RTHK has also deleted older episodes from their platform. RTHK noted that it has long removed news stories and programs from its official website after a year, and said deleting material from YouTube that is older than 12 months is consistent with this policy. Sometimes you just have to cleanse history of past truths to make way for new, more harmonious truths. RTHK also said it wouldn't renew the short-term contract of one of their journalists, Nabela Koser, after she asked hard-hitting questions to city officials during the 2019 protest movement. City officials are trying to serve the public. You shouldn't ask them hard-hitting questions. The only people you can hit hard are journalists. For example, the Epoch Times. It was founded by Falun Gong practitioners and supports the pro-democracy movement. It refuses to publish the Hong Kong government's harmonious truths, and it consistently slanders the great, glorious Chinese Communist Party. Fortunately, the people of Hong Kong took action against the Epoch Times. For example, in April, these heroic men, who definitely have no connection to the Communist Party, totally of their own accord broke into the Epoch Times printing press in Hong Kong and smashed their equipment with sledgehammers. That didn't teach the Epoch Times a good enough lesson, though. They vowed to never give up. Which is why last week, an unidentified attacker, again with absolutely no proven connection to the Communist Party, beat up one of their journalists with an aluminum bat. But after recovering in the hospital, the Epoch Times journalist told us she also plans to never give up. What a menace to society. That's why we interviewed her on our podcast, China Unscripted. That episode was published today. Is there no way to stop these dangerous people? I'm referring to the journalists, of course. Tackling fake news is becoming a big challenge for the Hong Kong government. It's a major item on Chief Executive Carrie Lam's agenda. She wants to pass a law banning it, but that could be tricky.
The fake news law needs a lot of research, especially how overseas governments are tackling this increasingly worrying trend of spreading inaccurate information, misinformation, hatred, and lies on the social media.
Hillary Clinton said the same thing that week. I wonder if she has any advice.
RTHK has been performing the role of a public broadcaster, and it should continue to perform that role properly as a public broadcaster, which is objective, fair, and of course support the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
Exactly. Supporting the Hong Kong government, no matter what it does, is precisely what it means to be objective and fair. And to ensure RTHK is objective and fair in all its programming, Carrie Lam has installed herself as the new main host of a new show on RTHK, where she can objectively interview all her supporters. The show is called The Election Committee Subsector, Overview from All Aspects. Thrilling! And now it's time for me to answer a question from you, a fan who supports the show through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Ian Pendleton asks, do you think it would be a good idea for the American government to try and cultivate a closer relationship with Mongolia as a counter to China, and possibly Russia? Or would the risks for Mongolia be too great for them to take the chance? Good question, Ian. Mongolia is a huge country in terms of land area. It's the size of Alaska. But its population is tiny, just 3 million people. That's about the size of Brooklyn, with a much smaller GDP. That is to say, Mongolia is not a big trade partner for the US, but the US still treats it like an important ally. The US gives aid to Mongolia each year and facilitates exchange programs for Mongolian students to study in the US. Mongolia may border only China and Russia, but since its democratic reforms in 1990, it has considered the US its third neighbor.
Hello.
When Mongolia's president visited the White House 2 years ago, he even offered President Trump's son, Barron, a horse. Now that's friendship. By the way, the two leaders eventually agreed to just have Barron name a horse in Mongolia. You know, so it wouldn't be an illegal bribe. But all this is to say, the relationship has been getting stronger over the years. My favorite Chinese state-run media says US-Mongolia relations lack a healthy balance, which means they actually have a much healthier balance than China would like. Yes, it's a risk for Mongolia to have close ties with the US, because it angers the Chinese Communist Party. But what's the alternative? To be closer to the CCP instead? That would be a much bigger risk for the future of Mongolia. Thanks for your question, Ian. And thank you for watching. Help us keep making China Uncensored by supporting us with $1 or more at patreon.com/China Uncensored. The link is below. I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.